The suffocating scent of alcohol filled the air of the small, dingy apartment. Wine, then just a teenager, sat over the kitchen table, her fingers moving swiftly to count the bills from her part time job. Each note represented hours of torturous work, but it was never enough. Father, this all you got? What are we supposed to do with this, huh? He snatched the money from her hands. Father, you think this is enough to keep us afloat? You're useless, you know that. Mother, always thought you were a burden. If you weren't so stupid, maybe we'd have a better life. Vine bit her lip, fighting back tears. She had been the one supporting them for years, sacrificing her own needs to keep a roof over their heads. Father, why don't you do us all a favor and get out of here? Find someone who'll actually pay for your sorry ass. No matter how much it angered her, no matter how badly she wanted to run away, she couldn't. This is how they grew her up. The countless times in the past when she tried to fight back, she was the only one affected, beaten up at the end of the day. It never changed them. Now, after all these years, the rebel inside of her had died, replaced by a scared soul who was once only a child wanting to have her parents' affection. Present. The room where she was, present today, was worlds apart from where she came from. It was sleek, modern, huge, providing classic vibes she didn't even see in the movies. And now, it was hers. She was in her bridal gown on her wedding night, with a man so commanding, known as the most feared man in the underworld. His reputation for ruthlessness and destruction was nothing but true. The door creaked open. Talk of the devil, and he was here. He stepped inside, and his dark eyes, intense and unreadable, softened as they met hers. He removed his coat and walked near the bed, stopping beside Wine, and put his coat down. She looked up at him once and looked away immediately. She was scared. Everyone was scared of him. Even the greatest of men, the aura he held was so dark she couldn't breathe in his presence. Jungkook, let's start with, do you see things normally humans can't? When he talked so casually, like he was an old friend. Wine. What? Jungkook. What's on the wall that I can't see? Wine. That nothing. There was no humor on his face, as if he was trying to see something. She was scared, and her hands turned white at how tightly she balled them in fists. He extended his hand, and with another surprise, she took it and stood up. He rubbed her hand a bit. Jungkook, I won't hurt you, even if it's all I do. Wine. That second statement was not necessary, she muttered when she was ready to receive a taunt, a slap, anything like she did always for talking back. But nothing came other than soft whispers and gentle touches. Jungkook, thought you would want to know your husband. He held her other hand as well, freeing it from the tortuous hold, caressing and rubbing it. Wine, why did you marry me? You didn't even try to meet me once. Jungkook, do I need a bigger reason to marry a woman I liked at first sight? And in my defense, you're always busy running away. Every time I try to meet. What was it? Your work? Jungkook, you worked so many jobs. She sighed and somehow felt like she wouldn't be hit, so she didn't have to flinch at every move. She hated her parents for making her foresee violence at everything. Wine. I had to. Jungkook. Not anymore. He held her cheek and stepped forward. His hand slowly went up to her veil and removed the pins, taking it off. Jungkook. Change up. It must be hard to carry. Wine. Thank you. She held her dress and walked to the closet. Her steps slowed down, and she looked around in awe. The closet was even bigger than the room itself. All those racks and sections for every separate clothing item and accessories. While one side was filled with his, her eyes teared up when she saw the bigger portion of it was filled with her clothes and accessories. All those beautiful dresses she could never dream of. Heels, bags, jewelry, everything was there. Jungkook, come on, let me help you choose. He appeared and slid his hand across her waist and took her forward to the section where there were sleeping pajamas and robes. Wine. Jungkook, this is too much. Jungkook, you don't want to wear anything? He eyed her and she immediately took out a robe and with heated cheeks rushed to washroom. His eyes smiled at her movement, yet as soon as she was gone, his smile was gone too. He took out his phone and quietly stepped out to the balcony. Jungkook, how about a breakfast with my in-laws? He said once the call was picked up, the other side agreed to it immediately. He heard the pride in their voices that told him they were going to brag about having a wealthy and powerful son in law everywhere. Only if they knew what he was going to do with them. Wine, why did you call them here? I'm not meeting them. He noticed the fury in her eyes yet, the shiver of her hands. Was she that traumatized? Jungkook, I don't want to upset you, at least tonight. But you need to know how you became my wife. It's not as simple as you think. Wine, what do you mean? Jungkook, you worked 3 jobs, 6 hours of sleep. Your father made you join the fourth job. You had time to do one thing travel back home or sleep on that cold floor. You chose to do that. He walked up to her and she was a little creeped out at how much he knew about her. Jungkook, do you have any idea what was going on there? Why? I don't understand. Jungkook, that owner was your father's friend. They made a deal to get you married to him. He had plans of making you work in clubs and brothels to earn him money, and your so called father was going to get a 15% out of it. Nothing affected Jungkook like the expression on Vine's face at that moment affected him. The dead and cold eyes, slow breaths, and skin turning pale. She looked more of a walking corpse than an alive person. Jungkook, he got my offer to marry you. He agreed, and then Cunning Fox tried to deceive me too. Got a fine print on wedding papers to smooch off a few properties. But that's as far as he goes. I'm going to put an end to it. He gently took her in his embrace. Warmth of his body eased her a little. She held onto his shirt tightly and wanted to scream. What father sold their daughters like that? Wine. I'm sorry. And thank you for telling me. He brushed his fingers on her head. Her hand slid down a little and touched some metal. She pulled away with wide eyes and saw a gun peeking out of his clothes. Wine. Is that real? Jungkook. I'll tell you after I try it on your father. Surprisingly enough, she laughed. Her laugh sounded like the sweetest thing on the planet. Laugh of someone who never got to even smile. Wine. Can I hold it? He raised a probe but took it out and removed the bullet before handing it to her. Wine. I'm sure. My target sucks as much as my shoes did. She held it out towards a waist. Jungkook stepped forward and fixed her posture, earning a scowl from her. Wine. Why do I have to stand like a marine to shoot someone? Jungkook. Because you don't want to shoot yourself. She suddenly pointed the gun at him, while he looked as bored as ever, but she laughed. She couldn't believe how easy and protected she felt in his company. Even a weapon didn't disturb her. Wine. Will you teach me how to use it? Jungkook. Anything you want. She smiled and returned it to him after she was done pointing at everything. And Jungkook swore it was the worst target he ever saw. But he wasn't going to tell her that, obviously. Wine. I have something for you, she said nervously. Wine. It's that small, a little gift. You don't have to keep it. Jungkook. Gifts are always appreciated in this household. She went back to closet, and he couldn't believe how his heart was at rest for the first time in his life, in her presence. He eagerly waited for tomorrow to take out the reason of pain from her life. That is, when he is going to be finally at peace and happy. To be continued.